That's it. I'm quitting sugar forever, starting right now. There you go. I just said it. But 2 years back, it wasn't really easy for me. Did you know that the average adult actually needs 0 grams of added sugar per day? Our bodies are incredible at creating all the glucose that we need from complex carbs and protein. But realistically, the average adult should consume no more than 25 to 36 grams of added sugar per day. That's about 6 to 9 teaspoons. It sounds simple, right? But the reality is that most of us are hitting that limit before we've even finished our morning commute. Also, knowing the science just doesn't stop the 4 p.m. cravings. But what happens when you have a sweet tooth that just won't let you be? Exactly 2 years ago, I was in my room and I looked down at the weighing scale. I saw something that I had never seen before. I was almost 70 kilos, that's like 154 pounds. And for my frame, I was at my absolute heaviest. There were a lot of things going on in my life. I had left my job back in India and moved to US with my husband. There were a lot of uncertainty about my future in a new country. And to top that off, I felt sluggish, unmotivated. My mind constantly felt foggy. None of my clothes fit like they used to. And really, I just did not feel like myself anymore. What was even more frustrating was that I was working out on a daily basis, but I was not seeing any actual results. And that made matters even worse. So I decided to do what mostly everyone does. I decided to quit added sugar, which seemed like a very doable project for me at that time. I just told myself that it's going to be a clean, disciplined, transformational journey. I'd lose the extra weight, get fit. I was already working out. I just had to eat right and everything would be perfect. Was it though? Well, the present me would beg to differ. If you've ever tried to cut out sugar, you know exactly what happens. As someone with a severe sweet tooth, I failed repeatedly. I would last for 4 days, feel incredibly proud of myself, and then we would go out, or there would be a party somewhere, or somebody would bring desserts, or I'd just have a stressful afternoon with college applications. And as it always went, soon enough, I would be staring at an empty chocolate wrapper or a few sweet treats, putting myself completely back to square one. I kept falling off the wagon, and every time the guilt was just exhausting. And finally, there came a point where I just got tired of blaming my own lack of willpower and decided to look into some actual data. What I discovered, I would say, it transformed my mindset as to how I was looking at the issue initially versus how it should have been dealt with. Quitting added sugar is really hard. It did help me lose the extra weight big time, as well as the constant bloating. But that was actually the least interesting thing that happened to me. If you are new here, hi, I'm Sanjana and this is my channel Vlogadoodle. I create videos around travel and adventure, but I'm also a research student currently studying in the US. This is my new series on the science of everyday resets, where I examine basic daily habits through research and not trends. Today, I want to give you an incredibly honest look at my own journey of quitting added sugar. First, we are going to cover the science of dopamine threshold shift. Next, we are going to talk about the psychological trap of modern environments. And finally, my action plan that allowed me to break this frustrating loop. Let's talk about why I kept falling off the wagon. We are always taught to believe that health is a matter of moral discipline. If you eat sweets during your fitness journey, you're termed as weak. But research shows that your brain treats sugar exactly like an addictive substance. When we consume sugar, our brain releases a massive spike of dopamine, which is our reward neurotransmitter. According to the study published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine, sugar can actually produce symptoms of reward and craving that closely mimic the neurobiology of substance dependence. So when I was subconsciously flooding my system with added sugar just to get through my day, my brain was trying to find balance. It began to downregulate my dopamine receptors, which meant that it made my brain less sensitive to everyday natural rewards. According to a very recent study, the findings confirm that the regular intake of fructose and added sugars literally alters the neural pathways regulating reward motivation. What this meant for me in my everyday life was that it lacked motivation. I wasn't just craving something sweet, it's just that everything else felt incredibly dull. Preparing for exams, studying, working on a project felt impossibly boring. So when I tried quitting using my sheer willpower, I just couldn't do it. And to tell you the truth, I was an absolute mess. The first 2 weeks were just brutal. It did not seem like a detox, and it also did not feel healthy to me. Once I understood what was happening to me internally, I just had to look at external triggers. In behavioral economics and environmental psychology, there is a concept called choice architecture. It is the understanding that human behavior is heavily dictated by how choices are physically structured in our environment. A massive study by Wansink and his colleagues showed that the average person who kept candy, cereals, or soft drinks on the kitchen counter weighed higher than the person who had a fruit bowl on their countertop. Think about what that means for us. We live in an environment that is actively designed to trigger our preferences for sugar even if we don't pay much attention to it. The modern supermarkets that we regularly shop at have deliberately laid out fresh produce at the edges or even at the backs, forcing you to navigate through an inner maze of processed foods. Also, the candy checkout lines that is placed exactly at the eye level precisely because retailers know that you are experiencing a decision fatigue after a long day of grocery shopping. This is when I realized that if I had to stay on the wagon for a few more days, I had to stop relying on my internal willpower and look at my physical surroundings. To survive in this environment without losing my mind or my social life, I built my very own 3-step action plan. Starting with the first step is setting up reliable boundaries. When we talk about reliable boundaries, we really need to focus on these 3 main zones. We usually start with our sanctuaries, our homes, which is zone 1, then moving on to zone 2, which is the social space like restaurants or going out with friends, and then finally we come to zone 3, which is like the wild, wild west, meaning the rest of the world. First, let's talk about my sanctuary, which is my home. This is the only space on earth where you have complete control over the design. My rule here is absolute zero friction. If a food requires willpower to resist when I'm tired or stressed, it simply cannot enter my apartment. I start buying sweets just in case or even for the guests. If I really want something sweet, I've made a rule to put on my shoes, leave the building, go to a store to buy it. This tiny bit of environmental friction has eliminated 95% of my mindless emotional snacking. Then we come to the social space. This is where most strict diets break down because of course you have to have a social life. My rule for zone 2 is intentional exceptions. If I'm celebrating a milestone or somebody has put genuine effort in baking a dessert, I will eat it, I will enjoy it and celebrate with them without an ounce of guilt. What I will try to avoid is mindlessly drinking a sugary soda at a casual lunch just because it came with the meal. This mindfulness has helped me switch from high sugar soft drinks to no sugar drinks whenever I'm out at a restaurant or even in the drive-in. Finally, we come to zone 3 where you have least control. This is the highest risk zone. I'm talking about vending machines, office break rooms, and even airport terminals. My rule here is implementation intention. Never go out in the wild with an empty stomach or without an alternative. I always keep high protein bars or zero sugar snacks like raw almonds or even homemade snacks in my bag. According to a study in health psychology, individuals who form specific if and then environmental plans, like if I'm hungry at my desk, then I'll eat the almonds in my bag, are significantly more successful at maintaining dietary changes than those who rely on general intention. Now, I need to share a major failure from my first year of doing this. When I initially started, my idea was to optimize everything. I started obsessively tracking food, reading every single tiny print label, and even obsessing over ingredients at social dinners. Somehow I managed to turn my wellness transformative journey into a performance. It became a second job to me and brought massive amount of anxiety and stress along with it. This was simply not helping me at all because my sugar cravings, it became stronger. And it got to such a point where I was thinking about food 24/7. It was simply taking a wrong turn. And now when I think about it, I think I was slowly developing an eating disorder. I just had to take a step back and remind myself about the big picture. What the goal was when I initially started this. Sustainable metabolic health is about long-term dietary patterns and not perfectionism. I was trying to turn my journey into an all or nothing game, so every single slip up that I had just made me all the more disappointed and abandoned my goal. Losing the weight, it did feel great, but the real gift I would say was the mental freedom. I no longer experience energy crashes or the absolute need for an afternoon nap at 3 p.m. and it also helped me with the constant bloating. I understand what usually happens at the end of a video. I have been there already. You feel incredibly inspired, you close the tab and then you declare, that's it, I'm quitting sugar forever, starting right now. Please don't do that. I did that too, and you know how long it lasted? Less than 24 hours. We have to understand that our brain starts panicking when we try to force a massive, sudden identity shift on it. So simply put, it views total restriction as a crisis, immediately spiking our stress hormones and then pushes our cravings for just another sweet treat. Let's check out the second part of the action plan. The biggest mistake I made when I first started trying to quit sugar was going cold turkey on everything all at once. I was mentally panicking, which is why I kept going back to one more sweet treat, which then became a week of non-stop binge eating. What finally worked for me was the strategy called habit crowding. Instead of telling myself that I can never have another sweet treat again, at first I just picked my one consistent daily trigger. For me, it was my 6 p.m. tea time snack. Earlier, I used to take my tea with 2 spoonfuls of sugar and sweet biscuits on top of that. But then gradually I swapped it for a low calorie, low sugar and high fiber biscuit alternative. I know it's going to taste very bad at first, but I promise you your brain is going to get accustomed to it. Because right now, I finally take my tea with no sugar and maybe a biscuit once in a while. The key here is that I picked one food at first and then started phasing out the sugar very slowly. If you usually have a milk chocolate bar, you don't have to swap it for celery. You can swap it for a high quality 85% dark chocolate or maybe a handful of berries with Greek yogurt. What I'm trying to say here is you cannot develop healthy habits overnight. It requires reinforcing of new behaviors that eventually lead to a change in the lifestyle. Doing these micro substitutions, you can satisfy your sensory behavioral loop of having a treat every now and then without flooding your system with a massive glucose spike. Once that swap becomes automatic, you then pick another one. The idea here is you slowly phase out the sugar rather than ripping the band-aid off. Tool I'm going to talk about is a psychological circuit breaker tool, which is called the 10-minute delay. When you are in a deep concentration or stressed after a long day, a sugar craving hits like an intense, sudden spike. Your brain demands dopamine right now. Instead of fighting the thought and saying, no, you cannot have it, you can say to your brain, I can have it, but I have to wait 10 minutes. During those 10 minutes, you must physically change your environment. Step away from the fridge, walk down the hall, fold a load of laundry, or you can even talk to somebody on the phone. Do anything but just postpone your need by 10 minutes. You can even set up a timer on the clock. Believe me, I've done it too. When the 10 minutes are over, check with yourself if you really want the snack again. In cognitive behavioral therapy, this is called earth surfing. Research shows that a brief cognitive distraction task effectively disrupts impulsive automated sugar cravings by shifting the brain from its fast emotional processing to a slower rational thinking. What you're trying to do here is allowing that intense wave of emotional craving to peak and then naturally subside. More than half the time when the 10 minutes are out, the urge usually drops from a level 9 emergency to a manageable 3. For me, I think it helped me think of a better option instead of what I was initially craving. Simply shifting from autopilot to a conscious observation is the first step to reclaiming your baseline. I have linked all the peer-reviewed papers from the video in the description box if you want to take a look at it yourself. Please take care of your mind, design your environment intentionally, and please remember that we can do this together. I hope this video was helpful to you. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to my channel Vlogadoodle. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!